very much. Thank you, that was great. Boy, I can't tell you, it's so nice to be back home. I've had a lot of homes, I guess, but Ames holds a special place for my family, and so I've really enjoyed the opportunity to come back. As many of you know, I had to cancel in March, and I felt bad about that, but I canceled because one of my sons had to have brain surgery, right? And like the surgeon tells you, oh, it's the tonsillectomy of brain surgery. And I need to tell you all that if anyone ever tells you that, you focus on the brain surgery part, you ignore the tonsillectomy part. But just for those of you who are interested, Sean is doing well, and he's a freshman this year at UC Boulder, so that's been a good thing. But again, I apologize. Yeah, thanks very much. That's just great. So I apologize for being late, and now I have to somehow make it up to y'all. So what I want to talk about today is going to sound familiar to those of you who've seen me speak before, because really I only ever talk about the same thing all the time. And so if you're bored, please tweet to #Rockstar and say, this guy's a knucklehead, why are we still sitting here? I also have a blog post that sort of supports some of the things that I'm going to talk about, and I'd love to see your comments relative to some of the questions that I raised there. I'm going to try to be somewhat controversial about disrupting the place we all know and love, which is higher education. And why would I want to disrupt it? Well, I've been saying the same thing for a long time. This picture's in every talk I ever give. In fact, it was in the talk that I gave when I first came to Iowa State as a professor in 2000 in this very room. I don't understand why I don't have my flying car. Like, I don't get it. I was promised it as a child. I don't understand why it hasn't been delivered. The future's given us some really extraordinary things, though. Right? Like, it's not the future that they told us we would have. But it is a future where we've built this kind of global grid that interconnects us and makes it possible for us to communicate with each other at incredible fidelity, at incredible speed. It's as though we have telepathy. Right? Like, if you invented telepathy, you wouldn't be able to sell it because I already have a contract with Verizon for my telepathy. Who can I not instantly communicate with? And if you don't think this happens, it's because you're a geezer. Right? The young people, right? This is the first time in human history where this enormous change in human capability is being acculturated from the young to the old. They're the first people who understood what the power of this is, and we have yet to see how much difference it will make. But it's just not making any difference in school. Like, I hate to pick on, well, I won't pick on names. I'll pick on the school we went to. When my boys went to school in Arizona, it was forbidden to take your devices to school. It's called information technology for a reason. But the one place you're still not really allowed to effectively use it is in school. Now, I want to introduce you to a guy, Eric Ashby. He's dead. He's a baronet, but he has a much better title. He's called the Master at Clare College. In the 1970s, 1971, he was part of the Carnegie Commission that studied higher education. And this is what he had to say. He said, among other things, higher education and education generally now faces, remember this now is 1971, now faces the first great technological revolution in 5 centuries. The technology that's had a profound impact on society generally in recent decades promises to have power. 1971. Tell me that doesn't sound like something I could say as though it was today. It's still right around the corner. And I've been doing this longer than I care to admit. When is it going to be something other than right around the corner? I'm going to try to convince you today that it's now. I want to touch on these 4 revolutions, right? It's the 4th revolution, he says, in 5 centuries. What were the other 3? Because that gives you an idea of how profound a revolution we should be talking about. The first revolution is the invention of school. Right? Like, oh, how do people learn? From their parents and whoever they happen to run into. Oh, it's a big change to take expertise and concentrate it and allow people to come to it and entrust and scale education in that way. So that was the first revolution. Second revolution, I think many of you have guessed, is books. While instead of taking the expertise and having to go to the person will write it down in a book, then many more people can have that expertise so we can scale it up. Each one of these revolutions, by the way, controversial. What's controversial about school? Can you trust that Socrates guy? No, apparently not, right? What was he convicted of? Corrupting the youth and killed. Socrates had his issues with the books. Really? Yeah, Socrates said, look, it's crazy to write stuff down. Because when you write it down, it's false. The only way that you actually can tell the truth is if you tell it interactively. That's the only way it's really true. So every one of these revolutions, these scalings of education, was controversial. Including the third one, which was to use printed books. Cardinal Newman, who was very influential in the establishment of the university system, he had huge issues with the idea that people should read for themselves. I wish I could quote exactly what he said, but it's basically like, the very idea that shop clerks and mechanics go around reading these books and then parroting them back like it's real education. It's absurd. Every time that we scale it, we believe we're diminishing the quality. And that's one of the major reasons that we believe we can't change the existing system. Because even these things that are happening around the edges, online education, that's not real education. How many of us would send our kids to the University of Phoenix? Oh, hey, Mom, Dad, I got 2 letters in the mail today. Stanford accepted me and the University of Phoenix. Where should I go? So we got this idea that there's a blue chip. There's a gold standard. And we know what that gold standard is because anybody how many people recognize that person? Yeah, that's Professor Kingsfield, right? From the Paper Chase. And he's sort of the quintessential Socratic professor. Nobody under 30 in this room has any idea. Anyway, this is what we think of as the gold. Look at us. How ironic is it that I've spent the last 12 years giving talks like this that are basically lectures are dumb. Allow me to continue for an hour. It might be true that there's nothing better than the way we do it now. And certainly that might be the implication that you would draw from the fact that it hasn't changed that much. Is, hey, maybe it just doesn't get any better. Maybe this is the peak. I'm going to tell you what, if that's true, we're in a world of hurt, my friends. Because the demand for higher education is kind of going like this. And that demand, by the way, isn't demand like, I really wish I was a better person and I'd read the classics. I'm not against any of those things. I'd love university education to give that kind of enrichment to every person on the planet. But we've got some more pressing issues like, if I don't get some secondary education that has some labor market value, that's the way they say it now, then I'm going to end up a drain on my society. And we see it everywhere. And that's only here. There's a whole globe's worth of people that we've got to deal with. This world is changing so fast now that I don't think we absolutely comprehend how quickly the jobs that we used to think of as human jobs have become technology jobs instead. Think about that Barilla factory. I remember when the Barilla factory came to town, and there was like, wow, think of all the jobs. Yeah, all 9 guys that work at the Barilla factory, because that whole place is one giant machine to make pasta. I'm not knocking Barilla, I love their pasta. But you, to contribute now, have to be on a different curve, a curve that we're not capable with this existing system of delivering higher education at. Both because we can't train every kind of person to be ready to receive education in the way that we've always delivered it, and because the pace of change, the scale that we have to deliver it at, means that what it costs simply won't scale to the whole society, and we're seeing it now. The fact that student loans outstrip housing. This game is over. You can't have a good that outstrips the consumer price index every year for decades, because eventually no one can go. That's just how it works. So clearly we got to find some other kind of model. And that's the essence of Western culture, is to find some other kind of model. In our society now, we take for granted that things will get better by leaps and bounds. Like, are you kidding me? When I gave the first talk in 2000 on this subject at Iowa State University, this did not exist. This chunk of the future, if I'd have whipped it out of my pocket and begun doing the things that it could do, because Wikipedia didn't exist either. And so I'd have been able to answer any question from any person in the room with this unbelievable fidelity. People are like, how are you doing that? I'm from the future. But not like way future, we're talking about 12 years future. We have such expectations for these things. About how much faster they get, about how much more capable they get. And it's not just the thing itself, but then the kinds of software and the kinds of responsibilities that we begin to place on it. Like Siri, like Watson. Right? How many people know what Watson is? Hands up. The rest of you may be displaced by him. Watson could whoop you in a game of Jeopardy. No sweat. Because Watson can beat the best in the world. That Ken Jennings guy, the guy that nobody could beat, Watson mopped the floor with him. A computer. Why don't we expect education to get any better? Why don't we expect it to get any better? Geometry is the same as it was when Euclid was teaching it. It's a 2,000-year-old way to get people to understand the nature of geometry, and I'm willing to bet that 2/3 of the people in this room, having taken geometry, do not remember that two parallel lines, when cut by a transversal, have alternate interior angles which are equal. Because that just didn't work for you. These chords that we struck at birth, we just keep playing them over and over again, as if they work, but they don't. If we had a little more time, I'd give you my favorite test, which is to have everyone in the room with pen and paper compute the radius of a circle that encompasses an acre to within 4 decimal places. And I got news for you, there's not one person in this room with all the education in it that could get the answer. No, we got to have a little more expectation. What's in the way? Get ready. I'm about to tell you the truth. This is in the way. This is in the way. The thing which we believe makes the gold standard is in the way. What is it? Well, see, the way courses work, professors make them, one at a time, hand done. That's how we get quality. You hire a brilliant professor. The brilliant professor teaches a course in their discipline. They make the course by themselves. Oh, sometimes they have a little help. A graduate student. Maybe they buy a book. That's acceptable. You can buy a textbook. Particularly for lower division courses, this is fine. You're teaching a math course, so you're going to teach college algebra. So you can have a book, and then you make your course. And every person makes it different. It's like gunsmiths. And we all believe that handmade, what could be better? Really? Would you buy a handmade iPhone? Can you picture how it would respond to that? It would break into 1,000 pieces if someone could somehow fashion one, because it's not even conceivable that you could hand make an iPad or an iPhone. No. As long as we are making these courses one by one, each of us alone, these courses will never get any better. How do they get better? Well, the professor gets a little better every year. A little smarter, a little more clever, a little better example, some little better notes, and then the professor dies. And all of the knowledge that he gained dies with him, except such as he passed on to his graduate students who begin that cycle over again, and so we grow at human pace. Not going to be good enough. Why didn't technology help? We've been at this technology thing for 15 years, and most professors' experience of technology is this. It's not just here. It's not just at community colleges. It's not just at Arizona State. It's everywhere. Why? Simple. Because the technology was deployed to support the sole proprietor model. We buy this technology, and then we deploy it, and you can use it if you want, and you can leave it if you want. Well, who's going to help me? Oh, we have a group Maybe it's called CLTE some places. Sometimes it's called the Center for Advancement of Teaching. Sometimes it's Technology and Education. And what it is 25 people. That's the size those groups generally are at universities, 25 people. Maybe you got a really big one here, you got 30. How many faculty do you have to somehow try to utilize this technology at scale? So what really is happening there is anybody who's interested can get a little bit of help. Well, like, what are our aspirations here? I want to try to give you a sense for the delta between these two curves, okay? It's these two curves. This is the curve of you working by yourself, and this is the curve where technology operates at scale. Let me show you the delta. Remember we were talking about my boy? There he is. Handsome young man. He has a following on YouTube, as it turns out, because he started playing guitar. And to learn how to play guitar this time, like when I used to play guitar, you used to have to get a teacher, right? My teacher was a guy named Partisana. And the problem with Partisana was he didn't know how to play the guitar. No, I mean, he didn't. He was like a guy who ran a music store in my town. He was the only guy you could pay to learn guitar. And I went there and he taught me how to play Go Play Aunt Rhody as though that's what I wanted to know. And when I refused to learn Go, because I could not be interested in it, that was my failing. That was my failing. I was unable to learn from the great teacher, Mr. Partisana, who could not play the guitar. What my son does is go out on YouTube and find other people who play music like him. He goes and finds them. They're making these videos of playing guitar. And so he watches them, and then he figures them out, and then he plays them too. And so what happens is this following begins to emerge. These people, like he's got friends in Germany and France and all kinds of places around the world, and they're all interested in the same kind of music, and they teach each other. That's human scale. It's cool. This is what I'm talking about. What chance does my boy have to make as compelling a guitar experience as James Taylor? James Taylor came to town once. I had missed the previous concert because of a problem at EAI that I had to stay late for, and so I didn't get to go. And you must understand that my entire life, every year, every summer, every time, James Taylor. I dream about James Taylor. This is no lie. No, I do. I dream about him. Every year I have a dream about James Taylor. He comes to my house. We play guitar together. It's amazing. The whole week I'm like totally happy. What's so good? I can't explain it to you. What would it be like if James Taylor really came to your house? It would be horrible. It'd be terrifying. Right? Like, what do you feed James Taylor? And then he pulls out his guitar, right? And says, hey, I'll tell you what. I'll teach you Fire and Rain. I know you want to learn Fire and Rain. You've always wanted it. Yes, James, absolutely. It's amazing. If I could get that much out of my mouth. And then what would he do? He'd whip out that guitar and he'd play those licks. Now you. Ah! Or he could do this, which he does. And if you ever wanted to learn how to play guitar, just go up there. It's unbelievable. First of all, the avuncular James Taylor in all his glory. Hi, how you doing? We're going to learn how to play Fire and Rain. It's like that, but not stressful. And then, views inside the guitar, on the fretboard, from the top, from the back, on the side, full speed, half speed. I want you to picture James Taylor sitting in your living room. You finally do work up the opportunity to play with him, and he plays Fire and Rain, and you, James, that's so cool. How about, would you mind playing that same thing again? Say those first 3 measures. I'm going to need it like 100 times at half speed. Would that be okay? It's totally okay. And the production value. What's it cost? It's free. You think this world is not changing? We're way behind, my friends. We're way behind. Because this is the tip of the frickin' iceberg. He does this, like in an afternoon in his backroom studio. It costs more money than your courses cost to put together. Don't get me wrong. He's got way more support than you've got to put your course together. But why? Because he can afford to play for every person on the planet. That's why. Because he builds a brand that will last for long after he's dead. So it's totally worth it. The economics completely work out. But he's on this curve. In terms of the influence that he has, in terms of the people that he interacts with, in terms of the scale that he can deliver at, he's on that curve. Let me give you another example. Some of you are technical enough to write a video game. There's a table of people over there who come from VRAC. They're more than capable of doing it. Patriots have actually gone out and written video games. By themselves. Do you remember when this came out? Do you remember 1975, 6? Well, you don't. You were not even alive. But like the geezers in the room are like, oh yeah, I totally remember that. If we improved at human scale, games would still pretty much look like that. But we don't. They look like this. They are the product of like $100 million of investment. They are so realistic that people marry in them. Right? World of Warcraft, people spend more time doing that than anything other than sleeping, including working, and they meet their wives and their families and they live their lives out as dwarves and elves. Because the scale of this thing is at hundreds of millions of dollars now. Improving like that. Changing your society. Completely changing your society. How? Well, because there's a market for it. You know, when we were working EAI in the 90s, we had a video game division. You might remember we made video games like Barbie Magic Hairstyler, Big Seller. Still feel like a criminal for making it. I gave a talk here one time in the ballroom to like 800 8th grade girls who had come to learn about, it was NEA sponsored, I think. And it was to like try to encourage them to go into engineering. And I put up Barbie Magic Hairstyler and I asked the crowd how many people, 75% of those kids put their hand up. And I thought to myself, you criminal. Your one chance to share education with those kids, and that's what you taught them, how to style their hair and whether it should be long or short. You criminal. Why didn't we make better stuff? How come we didn't teach them about volcanoes and asteroids? You know what? We tried. There's no money in it. You just couldn't raise the money to draw the talent to do it. I think you're going to be able to now. And I'm going to tell you why. And that's why I think this is going to change. Because I think a market is about to blow the house down. Here's one reason why. Do you realize, like I've been putting this slide up regularly. Every 6 months I change it. First it was Kindle books are available. 6 months later, Kindle books sell more than hardbacks. 6 months later, Kindle books sell more than paperbacks. 6 months later, Kindle books sell more than all books, period. It's over. Print is dead. Print is finished. It's just a matter of what replaces it, how much different it is. The younger generation, look, not even the younger generation, most people I know who cross over, if you buy them a book, they thank you and buy it again, digitally, and give the print one away. Because why would you want to print? What are you going to do with a print book? Hold on. This is another way you know. Do you remember when Borders came to town? Like, I was so excited when Borders came to town. Wow! We went there every weekend. And we saw all of you there. It was awesome when Borders came. It's gone. How did that happen? Because this is over. This is finished. But you guys just built a new bookstore. No, you did. And when I saw it, I was like, what? Now remember, I work for a publisher, so I'm just as funny. But this can't go on. I just interacted with these students today. And they're like, yeah, books, who cares? We don't buy them. When we do buy, like one person did it as an investment option. This girl says, yeah, I buy them at full price because my parents insist that I buy them. And then I sell them back and keep the money. It's like funding her education. It's fabulous. This is not going to continue. It can't. Because it doesn't. Where's the improvement going to come from? What, we're suddenly going to make a textbook that's so much better? No. In fact, Pearson runs a racket. So do all the other ones. They change these textbooks on purpose. So your notes don't match, so that you have to buy new ones. Because let's be honest, these books don't change that much. Even the ones in the sciences don't change that much, because they can't really keep pace. So what I'm telling you is, the infrastructure is changing like lightning fire. Now what's really brought it about is this, MOOCs. How many people know what a MOOC is? Now think about this. I'm telling you, this is one of the most innovative things in all of education. It's happened in the last 2 years. We're at a place that's a bastion of higher education. Only half the people in the room know what it is. Why? I'll tell you why. Because this thing is changing so fast, it's really hard to keep track of what's going on. But every place I go, Colorado Board of Regents calls me up. Adrian, come on up. You got to tell us about MOOCs. I go to Stanford. It's all about MOOCs. I go to University of Texas El Paso. All the internet. Oh, MOOC, MOOC, MOOC. What the hell's a MOOC? Doesn't it sound like an insult? Hey, you MOOC. It's a massively open online course. And it made a huge stir. This is how it started. This was the first one. This guy's name is Sebastian Thrun. And he and another guy, Peter Norvig, they said, you know, we could just teach our artificial intelligence course from Stanford to everybody on the planet. Wanna? Yeah, let's. And so they did. Now you might say, well, like, how good would it be? Well, let's start with this. They're from Stanford. Let's move on from there. One of the guys works at Google. Ooh, pretty good. Oh, what project? Oh, you know the automatic car? I guess that takes a little artificial intelligence, don't you suppose? So think about the credentials that are being lined up behind these guys. And then they put this course online. Now, I'm not going to show you their course, because I don't even care whether it's good or bad. I don't care whether it's good or bad, because that's not what's important. It's the first time that here, poor Matthew Stone, and I don't know Matthew Stone from Adam's Off Ox. I'm not picking on him. He might be great. He might be way better than Peter Norvig and Sebastian Thrun. He might. But this is the first time that people at Rutgers got to take his course and have another one to compare it to. Follow? Right? In the old days, you took a course. Hey, I don't like your course. That's because you're dumb. It's like Mr. Partizana. He's teaching me go tell Aunt Rhody, hey, I don't seem to be, forget it, you're dumb. You have no musical talent. That's why. Now, very different situation. Now I kind of go, you know, I sort of prefer Norvig and Thrun's course to yours, Professor Stone. And they seem to think I'm better than you seem to think I am. It's the first time there's ever been any competition. First time. And I'll tell you what, if it had happened to me when I was teaching a course, it would have scared the living daylights out of me. Because one thing I know for sure, when I taught computer graphics, I was nowhere near the best computer graphics teacher there ever was. And I know that I wish I had spent a lot more time on my computer graphics course than I did actually spend. I might have spent a couple hundred hours. And I'll tell you, some of my students produced amazing things. I just know for a fact it had nothing to do with me. Right? What I did was create an environment where some people could try this and talk to each other and learn about it. But man, if there had been a MOOC that was friendly to me, and this piece is very important, the friendly part. These MOOCs are not friendly. These are not friendly to an instructor. Like I was on a panel with Andrew Ng talking to the provosts. The provost of the land-grant universities had a summer meeting in Washington, and Andrew Ng and I are on a panel. And Andrew gets up. He's from Coursera. He's taught a giant MOOC, machine learning, to 250,000 people. He gets up. He says, hey, I've done 250 years worth of teaching in a term. Behold my course. And then he shows it to those provosts, and I saw it. You know that line you get right here? That one where you go, oh boy, how is my guy going to make... the women that I have teaching that, I'm not sure that we can compete. What does that cost again, Andrew? Oh, it's free. It's how much? Free. Now, a lot of people are criticizing the current state of these MOOCs. And I think it's fair. But you got to feel that line, not because of where they are, but because of where they'll be. This is the first term that they're teaching 250,000 people. Remember what we talked about, this idea that when you teach at these kinds of scales, how much money can you put into it? How much effort can you put into it? How much learning can you put into it compared to the 100 hours that on your best day your local instructor can do? And so that's what those provosts were asking. Hey, what about me? What does this mean for me? What is changing here? Now I'll tell you, go out and see a video called Epic 2020. There's a video called Epic 2020, go see it. It's what these MOOC characters have put together talking about the future of education by 2020. You know what they say? You're all gone. You're replaced by Google U and Apple U, and that's all that's left. Now look, I don't share their view, but what I'm telling you is something very powerful is coming. Here's what I think's wrong with these MOOCs. These MOOCs are what are called in the technology world skeuomorphs, meaning they are a technology with a foot in each camp. It's highly recognizable as the kind of course that everybody would sort of go, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's a college course. I get that. I see what that is. But it uses technologies and approaches at a completely different scale, at what will be. Thank you, sir. This is what happens when you wear glasses. So what they are is the sage on the stage with the biggest possible stage. It is not the best educational model for a lot of different reasons. One of them is you got to be Abraham Lincoln to really succeed in one of these courses, right? You've got to be so self-motivated. You've got to be so able to drive yourself and find all the... Hey, if that was going to work, we would have needed schools in the first place, right? Like the rest of us, those of us who aren't able to sort of blacken the stick and then write on the back of the shovel, because that's how motivated we are to like become a lawyer, right? The rest of us, we kind of know the topology we need to learn in, and it's different than that one. It has all kinds of forms. There's the student, then there's the student and one other person, their tutor. And that person interacts really closely with you so that you can figure out what's right and wrong and what you should attempt and what you shouldn't. And then there's the study group, which in many cases is the strongest indicator of success in higher education. Can you form a collaborative study group and can you advance it? The class architecture, which is essentially the tutor then scaled up. And we find that when you scale up the tutor, it actually has advantages as well as disadvantages, that when you make that scale, there's a part where, hey, it actually works better to have multiple students trying to solve the same things in a learning community. Oh, and then there gets a point where it's just a little bit too big, that class size is too small, too large. Those topologies don't exist in Andrew Ng's course. They exist where we exist. And so what I'm saying is a fusion is what's required. The topology, the way we teach, the way we assemble learning communities, the highly interpersonal way that we interact with one another and figure out how to learn together, that is treasure. We've built these institutions. This is something I call the Crow principle. You know, many of you know Michael Crow from his years here. Now he's Rockstar president at Arizona State University, and he's doing amazing things down there. And one of the things he said in an education conference this spring was, hey, look, I get all these new models, and I think there's lots of innovation that's happening. There's lots of things we're going to learn from. But if you think that they're going to blow the Arizona States and the Iowa States and the Michigan States and the Harvards and the Columbias, you think they're going to blow those places down, you're crazy. If we're going to reform education, it'll be reformed from inside those institutions, because that's where the real scale is. So, is there a way? Is there a way to design courses and deploy courses at scale that retain the human character of a local instructor? Is there a way? Well, I claim there is. Furthermore, I claim that for many instructors it will be better. Now I know this is a very controversial subject. And oftentimes when I talk about this in front of faculty, I am the devil incarnate. How dare you, sir? And there are lots of reasons why we should have those conversations. But what I'm going to submit to you is I think there's a way for people to spend less time teaching and have better outcomes. I think there's a way for people to spend less time preparing and have more interaction with students, not less. I believe there's a way for us to get together to construct as groups these courses at scale and have expectations that they will improve that we could never have when we do it individually. And I think it takes money. And that's the other reason I'm viewed as the devil incarnate. Because first of all, I work for a publisher, and that makes me the devil to start with, because we charge so much for these books. And then to talk about money is rude. In an academic setting, to speak about money is rude. The one university where it's not rude apparently is Stanford. Because at Stanford, I was just at Stanford, and they explained it to me. No, money, absolutely. That's the difference between us and Harvard. And what I'm submitting to you, look, at the end of the day, if you want to use technology in your course, and we're going to talk a little bit about the kinds of technology we could use and what difference it could make. If you want to do it, it takes money. Like, if you really wanted to do it in your own course, the first thing you'd have to do is ask for release time. Right? You'd have to. Well, that's money. And they can't even give you that because it's too expensive relative to the scale that you're offering the education at. Let alone what you'd really need, which is videographers, production equipment, data analysts, tools to gather the behavior patterns of millions of learners and then analyze those learners like Amazon analyzes shoppers. That's what you would need. And you can't do it at individual scale. You need money like this. But you can if the scale is big enough. You absolutely can. And that's when the improvement comes. Now we talked a little bit about this analytics, right? This analytics is the hottest thing in the world. This is like the sexiest job you could have, is data analytics. You know why? Because this is what artificial intelligence is. The current state of artificial intelligence is the mining of human intelligence. We thought, in my day, when I was studying artificial intelligence, we thought we were going to code it up. We would code up algorithms that would be smart enough or that could learn by themselves quick enough. But think about the examples of artificial intelligence that are so ingrained in your life you've completely taken them for granted. Let's start with Google. Have you noticed that Google can read your mind? Is it sick or what? It was bad enough that Google, given a query, could find anything you wanted. That was bad enough. How much? Free. Sickening. But now you type in a couple of words. Oh, you mean this? That's creepy. That's really creepy. How's it doing that? Well, it's simple. You're not the only one asking. There's millions of people asking Google stuff every day, and they're just keeping track of what you ask. And then they go, oh, people like this in this part of the country, when they type this word in, this is what they mean. They are mining human intelligence. You mean to tell me this has no application in education? Are you kidding me? We can totally see what this can do, but you've got to gather the data. Well, why don't we just gather the data the way we teach now? Because there's no commonality in the way we teach now. So this is the key, and it's going to work. One of the guys in Pearson, Will Etheridge, guy who runs our division, I love what he has to say about this. He says this is like medicine in the invention of the microscope. That's the point of time that we're at. We currently live in a world where practicing education is done through expertise. You teach your whole life, and through teaching your whole life, you learn how to teach. Just like doctors used to doctor people all their life, they learned how to doctor. Well, what works? I don't know. It's just kind of a vague thing. I can't quite describe it to you. I can just sort of look at a student and know what they need. This is the level of practice that we're at. And we believe there is nothing beyond it. As those doctors believed. Before somebody said, hey, look, check it out. You look through this microscope, there's this whole other thing happening that you couldn't see before that tells us how disease actually works. I'm telling you, that the kind of data we're gathering on math learning now, it's unbelievable what can be found in there. People like you who make mistakes like that, when shown content like this, suddenly master the concept. And we're at the very beginning. It's like von Leeuwenhoek. Just imagine on that curve what is possible. The insights of many drive the potential of one. Now, what do I mean? Well, like, I'm not talking about standardizing education to turn it into some kind of factory, horrible military experience where you engage with some soulless machine that drops. No. I'm talking about a thing which comes to understand what you need. It comes to understand, mediated by a human teacher. Hey, I kind of get where your holes are. Now, does this apply to everything? Not close. In fact, upper division, I think it's irrelevant. Upper division courses, I think it's completely irrelevant. But general education, the skill building courses that we use, oh, it's plenty relevant there. So one of the things we're doing right now is working with Arizona State. Arizona State, biggest school in the country now. They have scale on their own. They got an incoming class bigger than 10,000. It's still not enough scale to do analytics at this scale. But we're saying to Arizona State, hey, what if we redesign gen ed? Certainly doesn't seem like we'd be taking a huge risk. Because if that's optimal, I'll eat my hat. What if we teach these courses by design? What if we as a team, the teachers who are going to teach math, say, what if we all get together and we figure out where we're going to start with a course that we all designed together, that then is instrumented with analytics? And then what we do is try to grow that to bigger scale. Let's get some more people teaching it. Let's get some community colleges to teach it. Let's get some high schools to teach it. Let's get a whole passel of human beings, all of whom are trying to master the same concepts. And let's stop pretending that we need to do that one teacher at a time in terms of the design and execution of the material. And let's begin to do that as a group. Let's not make it so there's only one teacher that is the great man, Euclid, who teaches all of geometry. No. Let's graft it onto the existing system that we know produces great outcomes, but that we know doesn't have scale that drives continuous improvement. And let's couple those two things. ASU started down this road. It's a very bold step. It's really hard to do. It's scary to do. But the math results that they've shown are great. Like, math is kind of a gateway drug. You either get math or you leave the university. And most people who struggle with math, they don't succeed. And then there are some people who struggle with math, are able to succeed enough to stay in the university. But how many people in this room would say, I'm not really a math person? Can I see a show of hands? Come on, tell the truth. This is your chance to just say, I'm not really a math. Well, look, but you all took math. But they never let you master it. So the design of this course is very different than that. It is based on the idea that I don't care how long it takes. It can take you a long time, take you a short time. Let's find out whether you can master these things. And once you do, you can move on. Hey, you know what? People start going to math. They start attending. They start caring. They start liking it. They start enjoying it. These are the results that people are seeing. These are courses that they analyzed like poorly attended. I hate this course. I can't stand this experience. I can't wait till it's over. That goes away. That goes away. Replaced by people who master the concepts. I'm telling you, this is possible. Now, I don't claim that out of the box we just go, ha-ha, here's a course, it's done, boom, there you go. Everybody just learned that way. That's not how these things work. That's how you begin. You begin with a community of learners and a community of educators who say, this is our community, this is how we're going to try to do this. And then the data is collected and the term is over. Hey, here's how it worked. Well, which parts worked, which parts didn't? And it's happening at every level. It's happening at my section. What concepts did people get? Which ones did they not get? Which parts did they look at the most? How did I do relative to other sections at my university? How did I do relative to... All the way up the chain to, well, how'd the whole community work? Did it work better this term than last term? Which parts didn't work? What parts do work? We tried 3 new approaches, and we find that these 2 worked in these areas but not in those areas, and that is happening at every level of scale. You can see it just like I can. The possibility of continuous improvement. What does this mean for you? I claim it means that you too will be a rock star teacher. Because at the end of the day, what makes you a rock star is that you drive learning. If Mr. Partizana had been able to teach me to play like James Taylor, because he had guided me through those James Taylor exercises, my opinion of Mr. Partizana would be completely different. I'd be telling you about this wonderful teacher that I had, this rock star teacher, because I would now be a rock star. I would have not gone into education. He would have taught me so well, I would have been playing for you instead of having to settle for what I ended up becoming. Because that's the kind of influence that that rock star teacher could have on me. It is high time that we figure out how to apply this technology to the craft that we all practice. But we're never going to be able to do it if we do it alone. The only way we're going to be able to do it is if we do it together. So what I've been doing the last several months is traipsing the country telling this cock and bull story. Trying to find a set of university administrators, community college administrators, high school administrators who are willing to throw in and try this idea. Because I'm pretty confident that when we throw in and try this idea, at the general education level, at the level of places where we're trying to build skills, we are going to be able to build things together that we never could have built separately. So we'll see how it turns out. Maybe next year I'll come back and tell you about it. I think that's it for me. How about we take some questions if there's time? Do we have time for some questions? No? No, then maybe not. I'll tell you what, you have questions for me? Come back tonight. I'm talking at the globalization course, and you'd be more than welcome at VRAC. So nice to be home. So nice to see you all. Really appreciated your attention. Thanks a lot.